My friends, a couple of days ago, Alexi Navalny was murdered by Vladimir Putin. This comes as no surprise. This remarkable and courageous man, who was Russia's last best hope, could have run after being poisoned a second time, but somehow he survived that poisoning and had the courage, the absolutely astounding courage, to turn around and march back into Russia, knowing he would be immediately imprisoned and eventually killed. His death is tragic. It is certainly no surprise. But what is a surprise, what the Republican MAGA Congress did after that happened. They could have spent one more hour on the floor of Congress and passed an appropriation bill that would have funded Ukraine as a clear message to Vladimir Putin that we will not tolerate this dictator. We will not allow him to overrun our allies in Europe. But what did they do as the world was watching? They went on a 2-week vacation. They left. And on the way to his vacation, the Speaker of the House, who refuses to bring the appropriations bill to the floor, well, he stopped down in Mar-a-Lago for a photo op and to lick the boots of his Lord and Master. My friends, this is surrender. That's what it is, pure and simple, surrender. Our Congress, those people who represent you and I, they have surrendered to Vladimir Putin as of this moment. And history will not be kind to them or us if this continues. And if it does continue, let me tell you what's next. Poland. Poland and the Baltic states are next. And when that happens, we will have to enter World War III. And our children will be sent to battlefields across the European continent, and there will be death and blood, and all of it unnecessary if we would just have a tenth of the courage of Alexei Navalny and stop this war criminal who sends his prisoners to Ukraine to rape women and kill children and destroy cities. If we were to just stop him now, before he has the power he will get if Ukraine falls, and he gets their energy, their oil, their electrical power plants, and their wheat, which feeds most of Europe and much of northern Africa. If we allow him to win Ukraine, it's World War III. Make no mistake about it. It's time to start talking about this. Thanks for joining us today. Strange times, no? They've been showing pictures of Mike Johnson with Donald Trump all day long because he's really, basically what he's done is he has deserted the American government and made a decision that he will have no communication with or interaction with the President of the United States, and that he will dedicate all of his time and all of his support to a 4 times indicted criminal who is a citizen, not an officer of our government.
Yeah.
So these are really dangerous times. I mean, even, in Nixon's time, I had a lot of disagreements with him, but he was still the president. The Congress didn't decide, well, we're just going to walk away from the president of the United States and we're going to have a different president. And that's really what they've got right now. They are following a different president, a man who was not elected and who is not the president. So these are really serious times. I don't know if people are really grasping it.
Well, I think when you look at Nikki Haley and what she's doing right now, all of a sudden she's strongly critiquing Donald Trump. All of a sudden she's sounding like a reasonable critic than an outspoken, free-spoken, independent individual. And of course, we know that's BS. And but the playbook that she's working with it's reminiscent of Mitt Romney's playbook. It's calling to that reasonable factor that they both seem to be entertaining at the moment, or like she seems to be entertaining at the moment, and that is that there are conservatives out there who are mainline, middle-of-the-road conservatives and who believe in the Constitution. And the thing is, Joe, there aren't. There just aren't. I mean, there is MAGA, and previous to this time, MAGA would be identified as an extreme right-wing faction that the conservative party has to deal with. No, now the Conservative Party has sloped over and gone into that faction. And because none of them have the guts to say anything in opposition to the Trump, because they don't say anything like that, they're all signed on. They're all signed on. They're not participating. It is not. It's not a republic of laws.
Not anymore.
It's a republic of personality to them, and that's lost. That's gone. That's what Huxley warned us about. That's what Orwell prophesized could come about. I mean, that's what's happened here, and it's. I got to tell you, I really got to tell you, I honestly believe there was always that potential, but I respected the core belief of the conservatives in this country to the degree that I sensed they would not let that happen. They would keep that from happening because they were always dallying around with that hardcore right-wing radicalism. But I sensed, like the Democrats did with the hardcore left-wing radicalism that grew out of the 60s, I sensed they'd find a way to work with it. And I even, honestly, after surviving, the Nixon era and then plunging into the Reagan era, I even believed, I deluded myself into believing there would always be that reasonable conservative perspective. There isn't. There just isn't. That Newt Gingrich could just 2 days ago, or maybe 1 day ago, equate Biden with Putin is so radically moronic, but it feeds into, the orange man's dictates. Newt Gingrich isn't as bad as people say he is. Oh, well, I guess I'm wrong. Maybe he is as bad as people say he is. I mean, these people have all signed on to, the funny farm. They've all gone to crazy town.
They've surrendered. They have surrendered their leadership. They have surrendered their ethics, their decency, their morality, their patriotism to a man who is a criminal, who will be convicted because we have become so tribal. They have become so tribal that the idea of working across the aisle or finding consensus or finding any place in the middle where the truth might live, where we can both exist, that's out the window now. No, there's only one thing. This is civil war is really what it is. I mean, the MAGA party, it's not Republican anymore. We really shouldn't call it that. We disgrace Abraham Lincoln and everyone else who ever called themselves a Republican when we called this party Republican. The MAGA party has decided to fight war, to war on the Democratic Party, to war on democracy.
I love the way they reinterpret or revision Reaganism.
Yeah,
they literally, I mean, Reagan is rolling in his grave. He honored the mechanization of the institution. They condemn it. They're ripping it down.
This is so blatantly horrific. It's hard it's really hard to wrap your mind around it and put it into words. Vladimir Putin is a war criminal. He just murdered a man. He tried to poison him twice, and because the man was courageous, bold, and amazing, he got through that. But then he marched back into Russia and basically gave himself up, sacrificed himself, because he knew he'd be put in prison right away. And nobody is surprised that Vladimir Putin killed him. He kills all of his opponents, not just because he doesn't want them to run against him. He kills them because he doesn't want the humiliation of a high vote count for them, even if they're not going to win the election. So this is what a coward Putin really is. And this is who we're following right now. Putin's number one friend in this whole wide world, and I don't know why the media isn't screaming this every single day, is the former president of the United States of America. That's his number one friend.
Recast this. How would the media or anybody in the thinking world respond to Kennedy supporting Khrushchev? I mean, this is so bizarre. And I understand what Nixon did opening the gates to China, and I get all of that. But still, Nixon wouldn't have done this. Nobody would have done this kind of stuff before. And this is why I say it's not just the Trump. It's the MAGA. And the MAGA is an infestation of people who do not believe in democracy.
And we'll be dealing with the MAGA for many years.
Oh, for the rest of our lives, we'll know MAGA. And God forbid our children's show. I mean, this is that pivotal a shift in terms of how this republic functions.
Absolutely. And it's incredibly dangerous because if Putin does what I think we all know he will do, I mean, he said that the worst thing that ever happened in history was the fall of the Soviet Union. Now he is orchestrating the fall of the United States. His next move is Poland and the Baltic states. And when that happens...
1939. It's Hitler marching into Poland.
Exactly. Exactly.
And again, this gets us to what you and I were talking about earlier. This gets us to education. You know, Joe, I in my dailies on Facebook and on YouTube, I've been doing the stories about how my mom used to buy me the American Heritage Illustrated History of the United States. And you get one every few weeks at the A&P, at the grocery store. And I got up to volume 10, and I just want to show it to you here on camera. Volume 10 is the term between the 19th and the 20th century when America becomes a world power. Yeah. A lot of imagery about the power of America, about America growing into its own, as it were, in the post-Civil War era. And, you know, I found things, even as a kid, missing in these histories, which was good because it means I was starting to become aware of what was being left out. And that was important. But the other thing is, but I loved reading these. I loved getting them. I loved looking at the pictures. I waited for them to show up. When the series was stalled for some reason, I think it was over the holidays, the series was stalled. I anticipated, will they ever continue the series? We only got as far as the Civil War. What happens next? We don't have that with our kids today. Yeah. We don't. That has been replaced by short attention span pop culture formulas. And I don't know what to say to this because this just makes you a participant when you learn about stuff like, and especially like I was saying, when you're seeing the things that are left in and you start to become, as a kid, aware of the things that are left out. Mm-hmm. And that causes you to go and look for them.
Yes.
But
yes.
I'm not finding that in my students right now, in my my undergrads at the college.
Well, they've got to get involved because unity is the only way we're going to get out of this. The millennials are about 36, 38% of the vote right now. The Gen Zers are just a little bit over 10%, and Gen Zers are going to surge now because they run from 12 years old to 27 years old, and as they move over the next 2 or 3 years, they're going to surge. So they either get involved and get in this game, or they can forget about center stage. I mean, we're slowly, you and I, we're moving into the wings, as well we should. Yep. But they're supposed to take center stage, and the only way they can do that is to inform themselves, become aware of what is happening right now. They are going to be the ones that are sent to the battlefield by these congresspersons, these MAGA congresspersons who have never served on a battlefield. Okay, they're the ones that are going to be sent into battle when World War III starts. And this is not hyperbole. This is not theoretical. This is for real. If he if he crosses the line, they're going to be at war. We're going to be.
You're sounding like a wizened elder warning the generations coming up, and as I am too. I'm saying we are sounding this way. But what's interesting also, and we've talked about this, is the condemnation of the presence of eldership and the role it plays in society. In the indigenous world, it's just the opposite. Eldership is the golden place. You're supposed to arrive there, and with the material and the wisdom you've gathered, you can now spread this back into the generations following you, and that's how it all works. In the non-indigenous world, in the technocratic world, if you will, that's been erased. Elders go to, they get stockpiled in Florida, or they get warehoused somewhere, but they're not playing the significant role. And to me, it's so fascinating because the youth-oriented culture that cannot cut through that and extrapolate from those who have been before that have various experiences that they need to gain from, then they're blinded. Mm-hmm. Then they're just blinded.
Well, they're cult members at this point. They really are, and in the truest sense of the word, they're cult members. I want to recommend a couple of books that I hope that people will pick up and read. Both of them are really, I would say, excellent, especially for right now. One of them was written by Rachel Maddow. It's on the New York Times bestseller list still today, and that is entitled Prequel. okay? And it's basically telling the story of how we got here and what's happening and how closely this resembles Germany in the 1930s as they advanced and went into war. And then the other one is The Cult of Trump by Stephen Hassan. He was a member of the Unification Church cult. And he speaks in this book of a time when he was ready, if called upon to do so, to kill his parents. That's the kind of control they had over him. And he tells how he was able to break free of it, and how the love of his family, his father, mother, and his siblings, how they wrenched him out of this terrible place. But he describes in detail how this happens, how it is layered on incrementally, day by day, inch by inch, until all of a sudden you are not able to see the truth for what it is. You are completely controlled. And by God, you don't want to let go. I mean, this is a pivotal moment. What happened?
It is. And, you mentioned those two books. I love those. Here is another one from 2006, American Theocracy by, who's it by again? Kevin Phillips. This book in 2006 was literally saying we're bridging fundamentalist orthodoxy, meaning Christian nationalism, with government policy. And Phillips warned about this. I remember reading this book back then and thinking, wow, it's hard for me to believe this is actually happening, because it's so in defiance of the principles of the separation of powers and the separation of church and state. Everything he talked about in here has happened, and it's happening at an accelerated rate, just as you're pointing out. So cult-like behavior is this other thing that's happening with all of our friends, all the people that we know, and our family members, and that is Trump burnout. We're all experiencing Trump burnout.
Yeah.
And I think my feeling is that it's not just happening because there's a glut of information out there. It's happening because it's intentional. It's meant to wear us down so that we give up.
Absolutely.
I really think it's Machiavellian. It's perfectly Machiavellian.
Bannon said it. Bannon said it. He said, we're going to wear them down. We're going to throw so much against the wall, they won't be able to remember their own names. So this is a strategy.
So we need to cut through this stuff. And a big part of it, we were talking about this earlier this morning, you and I, a big part of it is real conversations. This is good that we're doing our social media in this platform, but we need to talk to one another. We need to be in the presence of one another. I mentioned to you how in my college, when we do a break at the lecture time, they don't talk; they just pull out their cell phones.
Yeah.
And I remember a time when they did the break; it was hard to get them out of break because they were into such conversations and dialogues and debates and even arguments. When I go down the hall in the college and I go to what's called the fishbowl, which is sort of this sort of little central area in the building, that there was always a cacophonous dynamic down there. Too many conversations happening at the same. No, they're all doing this, and I think it's doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, sure. It's rewiring brains. People they're hunched all the time, over the top of a phone constantly. You can't go to a restaurant or go anywhere in public that you don't see everyone with their little security blanket not more than 5 or 6 inches away from their right hand. This is not normal. This is not healthy. And what is happening in our country right now isn't normal. And we have to stop thinking that, this distress is stopping at the water's edge. If we go down, the world goes down. We're the ones who have been the preeminent member of NATO, and without us...
we're the world power. We're the world power.
This is going to result in great bloodshed and war if we don't stop it now, and we can stop it now. You need to call your congresspersons. You need to demand that they free up this appropriation for Ukraine immediately. They go on a 2-week vacation.
People are dying.
Yes.
They're counting the bullets per rifle at this time in Ukraine. They're counting the bullets and divvying them up that way. It's the emergency is here. It's happening right now. And they're on the front lines, and we're not fighting that war. They are. We're not losing our lives. They are. We're supporting it because we believe in the democratic process. We believe in freedom. And I guess now there's an entire portion of our populace, the policymakers who've got a stranglehold on us, who don't believe in democracy.
Clearly.
And I think that's important too. I think when you and I know people, I know we both do, we won't mention their names now, in our lines, in our families, who don't agree with anything or much of what we're saying. I think we have to face them with, well, apparently you don't believe in democracy. Apparently you don't believe in the Constitution of the United States. I think we have to start saying those uncomfortable the conversations your mother used to tell you not to, those topics. Do not bring them up at Thanksgiving. Yeah, don't do this. We want to have a nice Thanksgiving. Well, fuck the nice Thanksgiving. I think we have to, for the sake of people's lives, for the sake of children's lives, for the sake of women who are being tortured and raped and then slaughtered. I mean, we have to interrupt the niceness at the dinner table at this time. I think it's just who we are. We have to do that.
No more being polite. Nobody stays home this election. Nobody has an excuse not to be registered if they can be registered to vote. This is the fight of our life.
Yeah,
what will be decided on November 5th will be historic. It will change the world one way or the other. Do you want a democracy or do you want a dictatorship? Because that's what's going to happen on the other side of November 5th. One or the other, period, end of story. Folks, as we close up right now, Avdiivka in Ukraine, it fell yesterday. It fell because the Ukrainian soldiers had to pull back. They had to retreat because they didn't have armaments to stop the Russians. And so the Russians took over that town, and they're going to take others if we don't stop them now. And once Ukraine falls, Russia doubles its ability to access oil. It has the breadbasket and the wheat fields that feed most of Europe and North Africa. It has the largest power plant in all of Europe. Once Russia has that, Russia's got a significant increase in its power and its resources. And that's when hell begins. So I'm telling you, this is for real. Don't act like it's not. This is not hyperbole. We're not exaggerating.
Truth to power. That's what it has to be. Truth to power.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening.
All righty.
We'll see you next week.
We all want to be safe. We all want to be warm. We all want to feel loved. Know the comfort of home. Want our children to grow, learn to make their own sound. Seems to me we all walk on common ground. Common ground, common ground. We all walk on common ground.
We all wanna be strong, fully free and alive. Take just enough chances, stand up tall and with pride. Yes, we all wanna play, have good friends all around. It seems to me we all walk on common ground. Common ground, common ground. We all walk
on common ground. Some conversations aren't easy, and we wonder how we'll turn this mess around. But if we realize and seek to compromise, We sleep under one moon, lift our face to one sun, feel the wetness of rain, seek shelter, everyone. Yearn for rest when we're weary, seek solace when we're down. It seems to me we all walk on common ground.
Some conversations aren't easy,
and we wonder how we'll turn this mess around.
But if we realize and seek to compromise,
we can meet on
common ground. Common ground. We all walk on common ground. Common ground. Common ground. We all walk. I know that we all walk. One foot forward. We all walk on common ground.